Hello, everyone.
Good morning, man.
Good morning.
Good morning, Liz. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled.
Yeah, so Tom and I basically have 2 slots every week that we have open. So if some people like night, we do it on Thursday nights, or sometimes it's Friday mornings. And in the last couple of weeks, we've actually gone back to back because of just the way the schedule works. So I love that when that happens, because we come off of the energy that we build up on the Thursday night one is just still like, I'm still humming on in the morning. So it's just like, oh my God. So I love doing like the Friday morning ones because there's a completely different baseline.
Yeah. To pick up where you left off.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Thursday nights can be a little rough because it's like the end of the week-ish.
Oh yeah. We're also we're coming off a day of work and everything too. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we had one guy on there. He's like, God, I got to talk about psychedelics, and it's like 8:30 at night, and I'm like exhausted. I'm like, that's the perfect time to do this because we don't want you to be, no filter. So cool, man.
And normally we're smoking something or drinking something.
Right.
If it's Thursday night, we're a little bit more lucid on Friday morning.
Started early for the weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a little early to be pouring a drink.
There's no scotch over on the side anymore.
Yeah. So cool, man. Thank you so much for coming. I just want to kind of get into it real quick. Tom kind of prepped you for our first question always, which is kind of how you got here. So just, walk us up to today. How'd you find us?
I'm an EFT practitioner.
So let's see. I had this disorder, which is called trichotillomania, which is
say that 3 times
mostly
fast,
referred to as an obsessive compulsive disorder.
Okay.
But now it's kind of switched into this group of body focused repetitive behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of in the same class as nail biting, skin picking. They're all classified as body focused repetitive behaviors.
Is that a generic disorder, or is it specific to one thing?
No, every few years they have to redefine the DVSM, and they'll move certain conditions from one diagnosis to another.
I can't say that word you just said.
Okay, trichotillomania.
Trichotillomania.
It's really a tongue twister. It's on my business card, and it's like, what is this? It shouldn't even be there.
So is that word right there? Is that a specific thing or a generic?
Yes, it's obsessive compulsive hair pulling disorder.
Hair pulling.
Okay. So I had this since I was 8 years old. It started with my eyelashes, then it went to my head hair. And by the time I was, 19, I had no hair on my head. No eyelashes, no hair. Horrible.
So this isn't a casual hair pulling.
No.
Got it.
It is, at that point, it's an addiction. Okay. That's how I teach it in EFT. It's an addictive behavior. It's in the same class really as alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
When you pull a hair, you release dopamine, and it's addictive. So it's a disorder that I lived with and tried everything, tens of thousands of dollars, time, energy, money spent on how do I get rid of this? And I was, 46 when I had my second son. I was pretty much not a puller. I just did it infrequently, but still did it. Not to the point where I didn't have hair, but I was able to grow my hair back probably when I was 25. But it was more of, I was controlling, doing things to try to control the urges to pull, but it's more willpower at that point, and it's not gone. It's just, I'm trying not to do this every day of my life. And it's horrible. It's awful. It's like an alcoholic trying not to drink. So, when I was nursing my second son, and this is back in 2014, he was just little. I was on no sleep. I had this colicky baby. My anxiety level was through the roof. And I was stuck in this nursing chair. This kid would never sleep. I thought, I was having severe panic because I'd put him down and I'd go to bed and I would just be waiting for him to, it's like he could hear my eyelids slam shut in bed and he would wake up. And I would panic because I never got any sleep. I was so overcooked, really. So I remember one night in the middle of the night, thinking, oh my God, I'm not going to make it. I need drugs. I need something to get me through this. but I wanted to nurse this baby. And so I Googled with one hand. I remember sitting there in the nursing chair and Googling drug-free ways to cure trichotillomania, and tapping came up. And I thought, what the hell is this? I'm intrigued. I'm going to learn it and I'm going to do it. So I watched a couple YouTube videos. I started doing it and I didn't pull my hair, no urges, no nothing for 3 months. And I thought, this is something. This is magic. This has never happened to me where I didn't have an urge, where I didn't care about it at all in my whole life since I was 8. And then it was Christmas time. I remember it being the holidays and my parents are divorced. It's always stressful at the holidays. And I started pulling again. And I thought, shit, what? Something screwed up here. I didn't do it right. I need to talk to someone. So I found someone local because I thought I need to go to someone in person, someone that knows how to do this to teach me what I'm doing wrong. So I found Betsy Moeller, who is in Cleveland here. She ended up being my trainer for EFT. She was a trainer and I went to her house and she never heard of trichotillomania. She didn't know what it was. She thought, why would you pull your hair? And I said, this is just this thing that I have.
Why would you do that?
Yeah,
that's
why
crazy.
would you do
Stop
that?
doing that.
I don't know. I just do it. So she didn't understand it. All right.
Yeah.
Which was fine at the time. I wasn't expecting to cure it right then, but I was doing it correctly. And, but then I got intrigued by that she was a trainer and she offered these courses. And I thought, you know what, I kind of want to see about this. So about a year went by when I was still pulling and learning more about EFT. And I ended up taking her level 1 course and really liked it, and then took level 2. And then after level 2, you can take a test to get certified, to start the certification process, which is about a year long of certification. And while we were getting certified, we had to work with another certified practitioner of our choosing, someone that was, whoever we picked, to help clear something personally that we wanted to clear. And so mine was obviously my hair pulling. So I found someone else, the only other person I know that uses tapping for trichotillomania, and her name's Joan Kaler. She's in Pittsburgh. So I reached out to her. We had to have 4 sessions with this person, whoever we chose. I had 3 sessions with Joan and never pulled my hair again.
That's great.
Because she knew all the intricacies of hair pulling. She knew what it was. She knew the wording to use with tapping. She told me why it started.
Did she have the same disorder?
She had it.
Yeah, she did. Okay.
She had it. So she knew.
I didn't know if she just had niched down to some specialty treatment. Yeah,
and even if I hadn't cleared it during my training, that this is still the group of people that I would help, but this is who I help now. So the fact that I was able to overcome it and that I know it so well, I also help people with panic disorder, which I also overcame. I mean, I was severe panic disorder. Like I couldn't go anywhere without having a panic attack. I also had emetophobia. All of these weird words.
Is that vomiting?
Yeah,
it's
that's
severe vomiting.
Yeah, okay.
I was like, care about it at all. Yeah. I mean, you should see the people that I see that have this phobia that was way worse than what I had. I mean, these people can't even leave the house without doing 5 million different weird behaviors, because they're trying to protect themselves. So these are things that I know the ins and outs of because I had them. And that's how I'm able to help people that have this. And so that's who my client base is now. And I feel like, hey, I was supposed to have this affliction in order to figure out how to get over it and then to help people that have it. So that's kind of my story.
Tom, this is like the recurring story over here. Every guest we have lately.
But how many times have you heard me say that, like, no one knows more about a condition than someone suffering from it, right? I say it all the time when I'm dealing with autoimmune patients in clinic. It's not, you know more than the medical doctors. You know more than the psychiatrist. Why? Because you're living it, right? Sure. It's personal to you. And it's so amazing to me that, like, and this is kind of like where, even my practice, my personal beliefs have shifted, where what can we do at home on our own that's safe? And, worst case scenario, tapping, if it doesn't work, it just doesn't work. You're not going to hurt yourself. Yeah.
100%. So a lot to unpack. Great story, by the way. I love it. And what I was alluding to with Tom, that you definitely don't know, but I'll fill you in, is that almost without exception, I think just about every guest we've had on the show has had a differently amazing story, but all of it started with this genesis moment of some acute.
There's an origin story.
And it's always almost identical. It's like, I had this really fucked up thing, X, and all this fucked up shit happened to me after X. And it got to a point where I was like, all right, it's either end it all or fix it. And I fixed it. And now I'm a therapist, or I'm this guy or that woman or something. And it's very, very similar all the time. And I just, I love hearing that people can kind of go through that process and come out the other side helping other people. But I wanted to touch on a couple real quick things. One is the first reaction you had to tapping was, what the hell is this? That is almost inconceivable. Anybody could have any other reaction than that. Like, that was mine. It's like, because it seems at the surface bonkers. Like,
it doesn't make any sense.
It's like, why am I doing this? And then my husband said he saw someone tapping in their car the other day. He said, I was at a red light and there was this woman tapping, and he said, and I didn't think anything of it. I'm always tapping in my car at a red light, and I don't even care who sees me at this point. But it's like, you look like a crazy person. I mean, my kids will be like, Mom, don't tap in public. It's so embarrassing. Like, God, we don't want to be related to you. But you don't, when you know what you're doing, then it doesn't, when you know the reason that you're tapping on these points, then it doesn't sound crazy. But first, you look like an idiot, Yeah,
you definitely don't look right. Yeah.
Well, but I mean, that's anything, right? I mean, if we're wearing our yellow sunglasses, it's like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Please, no.
I do remember the first time my wife walked in and I was butt naked standing between two red light panels and just sitting there doing red light. And she's like, what the fuck are you doing? And I'm like, no, it's cool. You know what?
Look,
I'll see you in 18 minutes. I gotta sit in
here.
Well,
my wife caught me after I learned injection therapy, right? And I during the course, the instructor, Michael Young's out in Colorado, he's absolutely brilliant. He injected into my my piriformis. And within that, it was a 3.5-inch needle into my backside. So when the pain started coming back, I didn't have anybody to do it to me. So I did it to myself. And my wife came downstairs and she's like, what the hell are you doing? I've got this giant syringe with 600 cc's or 60 cc's in it, a 3.5-inch needle that's all up to the hilt on me. And she goes, what are you doing? And I pull out this needle from my backside, and she's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? She's like, why can't you get somebody to do that? I'm like, I don't know anybody that knows how to do it.
Yeah. You're like, well, honey, you could do it if you'd like.
Well, you want to?
Yeah.
You know how to do it.
You want to try?
Yeah. So let me ask you two sort of questions leading up to what, I mean, I kind of get into the mechanics of this a little bit. One is the list of things that you just described, all those disorders, right? Like, there's got to be, I'm assuming, a very strong psychological thread that ties those things all together. And I guess curiosity here is, what is the physical mechanism that attaches to that psychological thread, and how do those things sort of work together to work it out?
Okay, so that's a really good question. So a lot of it is the same for most people, and I know it well. Like, for me, I thought I was going to find out in these sessions with Joan when I was getting certified that something bad happened to me that I suppressed my whole life. Like, I was tortured, or I was sexually abused, or something horrible happened to me. I have rarely, I mean, maybe in one case where someone came to me had something that was suppressed subconsciously. Anyone that has trichotillomania, 99.999% of people are highly sensitive. We have really heightened sensitivity to sound, to smell, to anything. And it causes our body to just react differently than a person with normal sensitivity, like my husband. He's still trying to figure out how could he have gotten stuck with this person that has all these sensitivities to everything. Like, it's so weird. And then both my boys have sensitive stuff going on too that, you know, I recognize. My husband thinks it's, oh, you know, these kids are pussies. Like, you gotta, you know, what are you doing here? You know, suck it up. And I'm like, no, you really have to. So when I figured out, or when Joan helped me figure out what the reason was, it was, hey, I found this way to soothe myself, protect myself from something that was really uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And the reason my lash pulling started when I was little was I got stuck in the house for 3 weeks in the summertime. My brother, sister, and I all had chickenpox at the same time. Okay. Like, it's like the best time of your life in the 80s, and you want to be out riding your bike and out till, you know, dusk. And there's, you know, you can look out the window and everyone's having fun and you're stuck inside. Well, it made me uncomfortable. And my parents were not taught by their parents to be verbal, to show emotion, to talk to your kids, to be emotional. And so I didn't know how to do that either. I didn't say, hey, this sucks. I'm inside. I'm angry about it. Instead, I swallowed those emotions. I figured out this way, hey, I'm stuck inside. This sucks. I'm bored. I'm going to just pull out my eyelashes because I've got nothing better to do. And then it became an addiction. So I liked the way it felt. I liked the sensation. It filled a void. I didn't have to talk about my emotions. And then it turned into hair pulling. So it's 99% of my clients have this way of protecting themselves. They figured this out as a highly sensitive person. Hey, I don't need to do anything. Yeah. I don't need to involve anyone else. This is my thing. And then they don't need it anymore. They grow out of, you know, that they become verbal. They are in touch with their emotions. They do all this work, but then they have this addiction, you know, that they don't really need.
Sure. And so I guess, and I'm asking the second part of that question. I asked you for two reasons. One is I'm still in desperate search of somebody to explain to me sort of how the mechanics of this works, because like I told you before we started recording, I actually started doing this about a year ago, and I don't know if it rose to the level of disorder per se, but like as my professional life, as my children's lives needed me less, I ramped up my business life sort of on the same curve, right? And so I spent my 20s drinking and smoking weed in New York City, and like I had a business technically, but I was just fucking around, right? I spent my 30s raising kids, and now I'm in my 40s, and it's like, all right, time to get, for the first time in my life, time to get to fucking work, right? Like I gotta like do something here. At least that's how I felt, right? And in that trajectory, like I don't know if it was because I hadn't really spent 20 years prepping for this. Like I was not building a business. I was just sort of surviving a startup and surviving little children, and I, you know, and then I woke up like in my 40s and like, oh, okay, now we're at the starting line. I can finally get going. Yeah, that was super fucking overwhelming. Like I felt like every day I'd wake up like in a panic. I'd have like not a panic attack, because I had those in college, and so I know what that is. It wasn't quite that big, but it was like, you know, you just have that sort of like, my resting heart rate's around 50, and I'd wake up with like a 75 and be like, all right, we're ready. Like, you know, just sort of like kind of going, like almost like a low grade panic attack.
God, 75 is a relaxed heart rate for me.
Yeah, it kind of is for me too. I was thinking, wow, that's like pretty, that's not high at all.
I gotta be in deep meditation.
If I'm in the 70s, I'm like, I'm having a panic attack if my heart rate's in the 70s. Yeah. So I started feeling like just totally overwhelmed about stupid shit. Like I would just, you know, if my daughter asked me a question at the same time the doorbell rang, at the same time as like the toaster oven went off, I'd be like, fuck, it's too much. I can't take it. Much. Like, you know, and it was like it got to the point where I'm like, this is bananas. Like, I mean, why is I mean, you know, I can't be this weak. I mean, like to your husband's point, I'm like, dude, fucking man up, dude. What the hell's wrong with you? Like, Jesus Christ, it's just a toaster oven and a fucking question. Like, stop being such a jackass. So I met Tom and I met was sort of a little woo-woo place. We'd kind of like
a little woo-woo.
Yeah. That place was a little funny. It was awesome, but it definitely got kind of opened my eyes to one level and then two levels. And a couple years later, we have a show on it.
It was a business group, by the way.
Okay. Business group that you go.
You weren't like at some
do
sort
shamanistic.
We weren't nude in the woods listening to
I was going
to
say, were you in a sauna somewhere?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
At some point, we were in a sauna, but that had nothing.
Yeah. So I met this woman through that course of discovery, and we started doing tapping. Actually, my business coach turned me onto it, and he started it. And then I went out and found somebody who did it, and she was like this. I still love working with her. She's in Norway. Sweetheart of a woman, super knowledgeable, super chill. Her just general energy level is chill, so I could just have her read a Chinese menu, and it's
good. Yeah,
I'd probably be cool.
Yeah.
But we went through this tapping thing, and like she went through sort of like almost like a mantra discovery with me, like, hey, let's focus in on something. And like, then she had this whole prescription, start out with the negative and then move it back to the positive and all the stuff that I want to talk to you about. But like with doing nothing except for tapping one session, that's it. Like 5 minutes. I don't know. It wasn't even that long. For the next week, it was like I had taken 50 bong hits and I was just super
Matt was
fucking
bragging
chill.
about it.
Yeah,
it was like, oh man, I just did this tapping.
Level.
Yeah.
You probably, when you're talking about all that, like you're freaking out over too many things happening at once. I'm thinking that you had adrenal fatigue. Like your cortisol level is so high from so many different external things that are pressing that your adrenal glands just were in overdrive. I mean, you were fight, flight, or freeze like all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
So yeah. And that makes sense.
We did like 3 or 4 sessions in total. And that was the last one I did was probably January, February. I don't know. We talked about it on the show probably, but it was probably earlier. And I'm kind of just now, and you being on the show today, when I looked at it, I'm like, oh, tapping. Yeah, it's about time to kind of re-up that. Like, I got to like, I'm starting to now kind of come off of it. And I'm like, all right, it's time to sort of re-up.
Remind yourself, yeah, you need this.
But like, what is that? Why does that work? That I really want to talk. I want to hear like your perspective on like what makes this happen like magic? Like what are we doing here?
Well, like I said, so the cortisol, I mean, the cortisol is made in your amygdala. And when too many things are going on at once, your cortisol level goes up, and your prefrontal cortex gets hijacked by that, the cortisol level being too high. So it's like you can't make a decision. Your clarity is totally out the window when your cortisol level is that high. So tapping those points, even 1 point, even with no words, lowers it automatically. And your body just remembers. The more you tap, your body remembers. It actually changes your neural pathways because it knows, hey, I mean, now when I tap so much, I tap every day, that like I can just tap 1 point and I start to yawn. And sometimes I get angry. I'm like, shit, like I just want to, I don't want to relax this quickly,
Sure.
I mean, but it's just this cool way of getting your cortisol level to lower, manually.
So for me, it's cortisol, thing. But is for your hair pulling, is it also cortisol? Like, are we talking about similar things?
Yeah. So it is, in a way, it's cortisol because the things that kind of set off the pulling are anxiety, being anxious about something, being overwhelmed about something, feeling, stress in any way, that
so
your cortisol
triggered as well.
Yeah, your cortisol goes up. So yeah, that will trigger this I need to soothe myself by pulling addiction, the habit of it.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so when you're looking at like the list of things, I looked up at, you have all kinds of afflictions that this sort of helps with. I mean, are they all summarily, some form of cortisol malfunction? I mean, or buildup? I mean,
yes, definitely. I mean, a lot of them, there's fear of about anything is your cortisol level goes up. I mean, when you picture an animal in the wild when their cortisol would go up if they're being chased by something, I mean, there's this fear of loss of control. I mean, anyone with any type of fear, you get triggered. So I feel like it's, there's all this, it goes off automatically in anyone's system. Some people just, with these addictive behaviors, it's just not managed well. And that's why they, have these addictions. Smoking.
So you got that going. So cortisol's wacky. It's out of balance. And whatnot. What is it about the actual tapping that quells that though? Like it seems like bananas that, tapping my face like for a few times and like all of a sudden, you're like, oh,
so Tom can attest to this. Yeah. So it's it's all of these, it's the energy paths, all the acupressure points that we're accessing during the tapping process. And, there's 9 of them. You don't even have to tap all 9, but and Tom and I talked on my podcast about how just touching in, this area is accessing way more than just like one point of, of your energy system. So these are just 9 that kind of correspond to different organs, Tom could speak to this better than I can even, but it lowers your cortisol level almost instantly just because of accessing those those channels of energy that, where our body is overloading kind of this cortisol.
Liz is talking about and this is one of the and a lot of different modalities do this, right? In acupuncture, when I talk about it from a Western standpoint, and this is going to tie in exactly what Liz is saying here, the overarching function and the reason it can help with so many different things is regulation of our autonomic nervous system, right? And Liz even touched on the adrenaline, the adrenal cortex, where the cortisone comes from. Adrenal means on top of the kidneys. In Chinese medicine, the kidney system is our fight or flight. This is our willpower to get through things. But what happens, and to go back to that wild animal getting chased, right? That animal doesn't it gets away from whatever's trying to eat it, and then it calms back down. Mm-hmm. But because our amygdala, especially that right side there, gets hyper developed, right? I mean, Matt, we both read the book Driven, right? Mm-hmm. And Doug Brackman talks about, hey, you start recognizing every stick is a snake, right? So all those little things, because of past experience, you're already you're halfway out of your chair when you see something out of the corner of your eye. So when we do anything like this, and even just acupressure, light massage, or just somebody rubbing your back, starts to switch you out of that fight or flight mode, put you into that rest and digest mode. And that's where cortisol levels fall back into normal range. That's where neurotransmitters start to balance. So the dopamine isn't out of check anymore. And, we start making more of those soothing rather than addictive kind of brain waves. And that's really where we can kind of help regulate ourselves. So, this is if for ADHD people, this is a type of stimming, right? But this is a healthy type of stimming, right? Mm-hmm. Why? Because I'm kind of down regulating. Yeah. Right. I'm not just shaking my leg and causing the whole dinner table to shake. Yeah. It's like, oh, yeah, we're going to do this and this is going to bring me down and then I'm good.
So that's interesting. So I guess follow up for either of you guys is what you said there was 9 points. I don't think we did 9. I know it's here, this, and then up top.
You get under the arm.
Yeah, the under the arm, and then we start on the side of our hand, the karate chop point, when we're doing the setup statements. So there's, there's 9.
Okay, got it. So those the armpit and the hand, I did not do. So I'm curious. Can we talk a little bit about what are those 9 points and why somebody might tap all of them, one of them, 8 of them, not 9?
Yeah, there's so the points are which I'm not good at this. Tom would be.
Wait, you go and I'll follow your lead there.
I need my cheat sheet of what each point relates to, what organ system and everything. This is my favorite point. And
this one's for drowning. Drowning in acupuncture. So if you have a stroke, if somebody passes out, Yeah, like you take a pin and you're actually getting 2 points here. There's one, we call this the Chinese name is water ditch, because it's where the snot kind of pools in your frenulum. But then there's another spot on the inside where you have that little skin there.
Yes.
And we use this point to like revive consciousness.
Really?
Right. So this is a big one. And like even in martial arts, and you know, Matt, I know you have a lot of jujitsu training. If you just like put your finger here, somebody can't walk forward. It's the pressure there. So all of these points, you know, above all else, they're big gun points. They're not little things. And that's why tapping works so well, because like I don't have to be directly on it, just proximal, because it's such a big nexus that you're going to get something.
So Liz, what do you like about this point? Like what
this is really calming to me. It seems to, like, I can feel the energy in my stomach a lot when I'm tapping here. And I tend to have like over anxious feelings in my stomach, or like sometimes butterfly feeling or whatever. This really calms that for me. Okay. So like, you know, if I have to pick a point when I'm tapping in the car, it's here. But like Tom and I talked on my podcast about, there are so many energy meridians in our body that you couldn't even look at them all on a chart and see them. They would all be overlapped. There's too many of them. So
when you see it on an acupuncture chart, it's the highways. It's like the major interstate roads. Right, it's not the little dirt roads.
Of these.
So are these tapping points that we're talking about in the tapping, are these sort of like those major intersections, Tom?
Yeah,
absolutely.
And we talked about this too, Tom and I, that this, you know, they probably picked these 9 because they have good access to everything. Like, and even if you're not in the exact right spot, you're still accessing hundreds of meridians there. Yeah. And, you know, this is, you know, hundreds of meridians are still being accessed no matter where you're putting, as long as you're close. So, you know, that's when this was invented back in the, you know, 90s by Gary Craig. I'm sure he studied that chart and thought, hey, this is where we're going to do this. And this is why.
And so when you're working with patients, are you sort of evaluating the efficacy of those 9 points, or are you just sort of all around, you're just making the circles? We're going to start here. We're going to roll through it all.
I'm definitely, you know, when clients are with me, I want them to tap correctly. You know, we're tapping. I was taught EFT International is where the gold standard method of tapping clinical EFT. I'm like the highest and best. I didn't get certified through, you know, some 2-week online, whatever. This is like Gary Craig's standard of tapping, and we're taught to tap 2-sided. So when I'm with my clients, I'm tapping 2-sided. They're tapping 2-sided. Eventually, after so much research, Gary Craig said, you know what, you can just tap 1-sided. You'll still get the same benefit. And so I always tell my clients, hey, when you're not with me, you don't have to tap all the points. You can tap 1-sided, but when we're together, I want to see, and I want to make sure that you're tapping on, you know, we're not here. We're like on this orbital bone. We're not down here. We're on the orbital bone under here. You know, I want to make sure. So I am making sure that they're in the correct spot.
Getting as close to,
Yeah, I had an 11-year-old in my home office yesterday, and it was the first time he ever tapped. So yeah, I corrected him. But, you know, hey, do it this way, or you're not not on the side of your head. It's like, you know, on this bone here. So it does matter, but you're still touching anywhere that you're touching meridian points. So it's still going to work.
And I think with anything else, I mean, there's a couple other pathways in play here. One, placebo effect. If you're actually, you know, feeling that this is going to be helpful.
I wouldn't play that down though. And I wouldn't discredit that at all.
You
know,
Tom, you know,
play that up.
Down. I think our most powerful medicine ever is placebo. So I definitely would never downplay
whatever your brain believes is what's reality is. Yeah.
Yep.
But I do think there's also a component of ritual too, you know, like, and when you're involved with something that has sort of, even if it's pseudo boundaries on it or pseudo prescription, I mean, it doesn't even have to be pretty strong, but if somebody's like, just you saying double versus single, like I was have always done it with two hands, except for this one for some reason. I don't know, but it's
you don't need to really
it's not convenient for that.
Yeah. So you're right. Single up top, but then everything else was like double, right? And so like,
that's because the channels you're on are center line. So this is Ren conception vessel. This is due governing vessel.
Here, and then here down.
Yeah. So like, but for me, just knowing that there's a process to that, I think is in and of itself a little soothing, but just if nothing else, right? You're like, all right, I'm tapping to, you're like, you're like, ooh, I'm doing it right. Like there's a little bit of an attaboy going on there too. Like I feel like there is a bunch of things that contribute to this, but like it is weirdly effective. And I guess I saw things like on your site about tinnitus and TMJ, like how the hell I have a friend who was standing next to a fire truck 2 years ago, and he was coming home from dinner with his girlfriend and blew out his eardrum. He has had deafening tinnitus, and he's like going through everything.
Yeah, I have it too.
How does something like this help that?
I have it, so I know, and it's always going on. And I also have some stupid other thing that has the dumbest name. It's called stapedial myoclonus, and it's
what the fuck is that?
It's like
that's that girl from that '70s show.
It's like this tiny little guy this tiny little drummer in your ear, drumming on a little drum all the time. And the only time I can really hear it is when it's really quiet. But the tapping
it's relating to the bone in the ear.
Yes,
okay.
It does.
All right. Okay.
So I have that, but I also won too many loud concerts growing up. I
just one
standing.
You see all the concert posters in Matt's background.
Yeah, just like
so bad. Yeah. I mean, I think the last concert that was so loud, I think I was standing next to the speaker. And,
that's the best place to stand.
Do you guys like the Cult?
Yeah, the Cult's great.
I saw the Cult live at the House.
Yeah.
Oh God. I saw Cult
Matt
live
Sorum
at
might
House
be
of
one of the
Blues
best
in Cleveland.
drummers ever.
I don't think I could hear for a week after that concert. I mean, how stupid. I was probably in my 30s then, but
how stupid or how fucking awesome. The Cult's
it was
amazing.
one of the best concerts. Probably one of the best concerts I ever saw.
Hell
but
yeah.
So I know about it because I have it, and it, not that it takes it away per se, because I can't say, hey, I've cured this from, or, it's stopped from this, but I know what it's from. And the anxiety that I have around it can be lowered so that, hey, if this really makes me anxious, I know I can tap and maybe it won't bother me for part of the day.
Sure.
Maybe,
I see what you're saying.
So
is TMJ kind of a similar thing, like reduce your anxiety?
TMJ I can get rid of. I've had TMJ. I can get rid of.
That's really tied to musculoskeletal. And a lot of times, like, normally when I see it in clinic, it's because they've had, years and years of neck and shoulder tension that creeps up. They might have some occipital headaches. And it's all stress related.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that 100% of the time, because some doc is going to come on and go, hey, you jackass. But in most cases, reducing stress and coming back to that cortisol.
Yeah. It's what are you holding on to?
Yeah.
And why are you holding it in your jaw? And so,
And you're hitting a lot of points that are related to gallbladder. And gallbladder's the flank of the body, and this looks kind of like your hips in one of these microsystems. So you get a lot of you're with all 9 of these points. They have to be accessible so you can tap them, but there's like multiple systems layered on each of those. So not even just that chart that we're talking about. This looks like the hips. Yeah, we do this here, and it's the idea is that it's like rooting your spirit, right? So there's all these big things that are happening that are, sometimes a little bit more esoteric, sometimes representing a different part of the body. Even the one under the ribs, we call this one big embrace, like big hug, because the meridian spreads around the chest. So they say, oh, this is for whole body pain,
But
sorry, I went on a little
it's fine,
there.
Matt. The reason that would work though for the TMJ, when I would be with the client, I'd say, how long has this been going on? Tell me when it first started. What was going on when that thing first, when the clenching, when the jaw, when the pain first started? And I can kind of get back to where it originated. And hey, I just had a job change. I got a divorce. I got a this, I got a, something traumatic, or something stressful that triggered this, clenching and holding all of this stress in your jaw. And we can usually tap through those specific events. And the wording also, I should mention, the wording and tapping is very, very, it matters. Okay.
And it's funny. That was the next question I was going to ask, is like, cause you'd made a reference to tapping sans word and tapping
and you can,
with word.
But the more specific you are with something that you're working on, and that's why people hire a practitioner like me, because they don't know what to say. They can't get deep enough or specific enough with the wording for it to clear, or, for that energy to move. So, it does really matter what you say, the more specific you are. And that's why I always say to my client, if I'm not being, change my words while we're tapping. If something doesn't resonate with you, change the words. It needs to resonate. And the more clear, the more specific you are with the wording, the better tapping works. Right. So, when my clients aren't with me, I'll say, text me if you need a setup statement. Like, I don't want you to not tap because you didn't know what to say, but the words are very, very important.
So Tom's earlier point about Tom and I talk about like this sort of hedging sort of philosophy in health a lot. Like, if this doesn't work, worst case scenario, I look like an idiot. Like best case scenario, it solves a bunch of stuff. Worst case scenario, it does nothing. Right. Like, I mean,
but this is the best medicine, right? You're not going to do any harm.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Definitely. So my question here is how can the words also have a harming effect, or is it just a lack of efficiency effect? Right. Like, I mean, can we sort of talk ourselves into reinforcing a sort of non-desirable circumstance, or is it just sort of like worst case scenario just didn't work as efficiently?
Like a negative NLP kind of thing.
Like negative NLP. Yeah, exactly.
Nah, you know what? I've never even heard that question.
I think it would come down a lot to intention, right? You're not going to pick words where like, hey, you're a lazy sack of shit. You're not going to. You're not going to start saying that to yourself.
But
so I
guess
it's rooted though in the
on the inside you probably do. Like you're like, right. I can't get this right.
So no, Matt, I know what you mean. So it would be more like so things come up. Okay, so when let me try to think of something specific. Like, okay, we're tapping about with a client that has a drug addiction or something like that. And while we're tapping, using these words about I'm addicted to this, or I like the way this feels, or whatever, something comes up because we're being so specific that their subconscious blocked for years. Okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, I was abused by my father. I was verbally abused. I was physically abused. This came up. So other things that are negative can come up while we are tapping when you're being very specific. Okay. So that's the only negative thing I can see about it, is that there's other layers of this shit that come up. It's like peeling an onion. And then, okay, no problem. We just work through that then, so we're kind of, and it's good work, it's, hey, I would have never thought of that because my subconscious suppressed it for so many years. And here it comes when we're tapping about something really general, actually, about my feelings about, how I feel when I use this drug or whatever. So that's like the only negative thing, is that, hey, I've got all this work to do and it seems like a lot of work, but that's why people hire someone like me to go through these layers, then test to make sure that those things are actually cleared. Sometimes, we have ways of testing. I could muscle test you just over Zoom. Even we can do muscle testing to make sure that those things are actually cleared. And there's different ways of tapping through things, not just tapping. There's tell the story technique. There's all kinds of other ways to tap that only a certified practitioner, someone that's trained, would know how to do. And there's better ways to do certain traumas and things, better ways to tap through than just the normal procedure. So other negative things come up. Yeah.
That's super interesting. So when you go through your list of things on the website or even things that you focus on, like you don't have sort of a one size fits people.
Everyone's different.
Yeah.
And I can work with anyone that has anything. Like just that list of stuff that's on my website is like real basic things that I do because I've had experience with those. But like you can use tapping for anything.
Yeah, and when I hear these things and I talk to people like you, actually, my wife is actually one of the most frustrating cases in my world because she is just so closed off.
I believe spouses are the most frustrating cases for most people.
I mean, because she's got this thing called misophonia, which drives me fucking crazy if I'm being honest. Because like,
do you chew with your mouth open? Maybe it's you, man.
No, I do not chew with my mouth open. No, he's not.
You could. Yeah, I'm sure you avoid chewing with your mouth open at all costs.
Totally. Well, my son bites his nails, and like
that's body focused repetitive behavior.
It's that also drives me crazy. But I guess I just tune it out. Like it doesn't bother me. But I'm telling you, like the first one, like I mean, the first one, like and my wife is having a fucking heart attack.
Yeah,
like, and it's not just like a casual reaction. It's like death daggers staring through your fucking soul.
Yeah, she probably has a highly sensitive personality. She's probably an HSP like me.
Oh, really?
Is there dog licking? Is there an animal? The licking noise of the dog.
The licking noise.
That's gross.
She's a huge dog fan, but the only thing that gets her to want to murder my dog is licking.
Is the licking.
And again, it's not like, okay, the dog's been licking for 10 minutes. Now it's annoying. It's like, the dog's been licking for a quarter of 1 second. Like, and it's
the dog just got into position, and that was enough.
The dog thought about licking, and my
tongue went out, and she freaked out.
Did he kind of curl up a little bit? You better not.
Yeah, and so and she's got TMJ and has had it since college, right? And so when I've tried to send her to Tom for the TMJ. No dice on that. She just spent $1 gazillion on a TMJ specialist and like an MRI and all this other stuff. And I'm like, so it's not like she does nothing to help these things, but it is so frustrating because I we talk about placebo effect. She's the opposite of placebo effect. She's like basically like, I know this won't work, so therefore it will not work.
It won't work.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And so I try to send her to places. I'm absolutely going to mention this conversation to her and be like,
well, we can also tap about if she thinks it's stupid, we could tap about this isn't going to work.
About that.
Yeah, I'm serious. I can't tell you how many times I've tapped with people that this is the dumbest thing I ever saw. This isn't going to work. I have a belief that this isn't going to work.
That's really funny.
A limiting belief. I mean, there's big beliefs that are involved that we work through in tapping that, it's a big deal.
Yeah, can we talk about the funniness of that? To get over your disbelief of tapping, we're going to go tap.
We're going to go tap.
Do they say it like ironically, or they're like, this is totally going to work?
I just had another client the other day. I literally just tapped about this with a client on Thursday morning that came into my home office. And I don't have that many clients in my home office. It's kind of random. But I see like 99% of my clients through Zoom. But I said, what came up after that round of tapping? And she said, the tapping's not going to work for this. And I said, and like her mouth, her jaw like dropped open. And she said, I can't believe I just said that. I tap every day. Why would I think that? So then we tapped, well, the tapping's not going to work for this. Who would ever think that tapping is going to work for anything? Tapping is the dumbest thing I ever heard.
Yeah.
And we tapped through that. And then she was laughing, which laughing is a release of, people during sessions will laugh, they'll cry, they'll burp, they'll yawn. Oh, yeah. And I always tell people, that's great. Some energy's moving. We want that. So she thought it was the stupidest thing. After we were done, she said, I can't believe I even said that. It just was, but subconsciously that was blocking her from moving forward with whatever we were working on.
That's so funny. Yeah. My old coach who I did Qigong with a lot, he's like, farting is a really good it's a good expression that it's working.
Yeah.
And I was like,
some weird beliefs, man.
You know what? I don't think that's a release. It's a release of something, but
it's a release of something. And I was like, but I was laughing, and he's like, and there's another release, laughing. I'm like, all right, I get the point. Yeah.
Well,
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I guess you answered the question before I even got to it, which was like, so people can just be like, no, come on, dude, you're a bit of a quack, and this is stupid. And you're like, cool, let's just tap through it and figure it out.
Yep.
And do you notice a pretty immediate course correction on that? Like, is it something that kind of gets Do people sort of like come around to it real fast?
Yeah. And I can tell by the change in their facial expressions, even though they can't see, I can see that, their body, their posture changes, their shoulders drop down, their face looks more relaxed. It's visible,
sure.
the changes that happen in such a short amount of time. I mean, you wouldn't believe the stuff that I see. It's kind of crazy.
No, I love it. And I guess, Tom, you probably, you've talked about this in clinic before too, with when you're looking at just how somebody presents, and you can almost tell right away, like when you fixed it. Like,
yeah.
Well, there's a shift, right? And it's energetic, but sometimes it's a look in their eyes or how they're holding their body, or, they do have all of those emotional releases, which, in Chinese medicine, they're all associated with a different organ or a different pathway or, a different origin. But like the fact that the shift happens, that's when it's not like, oh, this is all cured, but it's at least, hey, look, we know we're moving in a better direction.
Right. Cool. Well, I mean, I like you said, I'm super fascinated by this. I'm just, I still don't know how I went my whole life not hearing about this, and especially since it is so effective. So is there anything like we didn't really touch on? I know, short of going through a tapping session, which I mean, I'd be curious if you ever wanted to do that. I'd listen to that too. But aside from that, did we not touch on anything that's sort of important in this space?
People ask me all the time, how long does it take to get over something? How many sessions? Am I going to be cured from hair pulling after 4 sessions? I mean, everyone is so different that I can't ever answer that. It's not, that's one of the biggest things. When I get on a call, I talk to people, have a discovery call before I even work with them to make sure that our energy is good, that I can help them with what they need. And, that's the first thing they want to know. How long is this going to take?
We all want, I mean, it's like the funniest thing we talk about.
Pop a pill culture, right?
Yeah, it's the same with, I mean, I'm sure it's the same with acupuncture, Tom. It's like, well, how many times do I have to come? Which, by the way, since our session or since my podcast, I've been going to my acupuncturist again, and it's
great.
helping
I'm glad to hear
amazingly.
That.
I went twice a week for 2 weeks, and now I'm going once a week, and it's amazing. And
Excellent.
I don't care. I'll go for the rest of my life if I feel as good as I do.
And that looks different all the time, right?
Yep.
Depending on where you are, right?
Yes,
so that might be once a month. That might be once every couple of months.
Yeah.
It may be, hey, I noticed this. Well, like come in a little bit more frequently, and we'll take care of that.
Like when I was in there, I'm going for one thing, but I twisted my ankle 6 months ago, and now my ankle hurts. Can we, so then we're doing something a little different that, so everyone is different. And I see clients sometimes. For this client that is in my home office, she just likes to come because we already got over the main thing that she wanted to work with me with, but she just likes to go deeper.
And that's real
do
common
other stuff.
too.
Right. Yeah. So this is like, I've been seeing her for 2 years.
I just like being here.
Yeah. I've been seeing her for 2 years for different stuff, whatever comes up. And it also, you have to tap. You can't just, someone will say, well, I think they think when they're with me for an hour,
that's it,
once a week. Yeah, that's it. I always give homework. I'm saying you need to do this, this, and this before, and you're going to experiment by doing this, with tapping and tell me about it the next time I see you. And then I always,
you might not be able to answer the how many sessions, but I mean, generally speaking, do you find tapping to be like while you're working through the problem? Is it a daily practice? Is it a once a week, twice a week, 5 times a week?
It's daily. It's daily. And I'll tell my clients 5 minutes a day, at least, on the issue.
While we're in acute triage.
On the issue or on something else, anything. Just tap, because your brain those neural pathways start to change the more you tap. And
I see.
You can't just do it once a week and expect it to work. It's like, it's changing a habit. It's changing a belief. It's I have the most amazing clients too, clients that are so motivated, and they do the best. The clients that do the work, and it's not sometimes fun. And they'll text me and I'll say, hey, don't work on that. Write that down and let's work on that together. That's too big for you to get into, without me. Oh, this came up when I wasn't with you. And then we'll talk about it in the next session. But there are people that do the work outside of the sessions with me have the best outcome. And
Interesting.
It's work. It's not just I'm paying you for an hour and then I'm going about my business. It's work.
So I picked up on something you said there about like just move to something else. I mean, can you just essentially be going through the same tapping like rotation, but switch gears in the middle? Like say,
No.
all right, no. So
no, if another issue comes up, so I ask you a number on a scale of 0 to 10 every time we start tapping about something. So I'll say, okay, give me your anxiety level about that thing. How, or give me an emotion around that. I got overwhelmed. I've got whatever. Scale of 0 to 10. We're working on just that one thing until we get it to a really low number, a 2, a 1. Then we can, if things came up in the middle of that, I'm writing it down. Okay.
Okay.
They're different aspects of possibly the same thing. And we have to work on those aspects all separately. So,
and you're bringing those numbers down intra-session, right? Like you're not talking about session over session. You're just talking about like today I need to get you from a 10 to a 2, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and then we'll test and then we'll move on. So other big things will come up. And like I said, I'll write them down and then we'll go through those. So yeah.
And then if I come in with like a 10 of overwhelm today and you work me down to a 3 and we're like, that's good enough for today. Next week I come back. Do you normally see people kind of re-elevated back to a 10 or do you see them kind of come back in at like, you know what, man, I'm feeling a little bit more like an 8 today. Like,
both. Both.
Yeah.
And it could be, I'm getting triggered by the same thing. Okay, let's tap about that. I'm still getting triggered by this thing. Or, it might be I'm getting triggered by this other thing now, but it's the same emotion that I'm getting triggered. So we're trying to get to the root literally of what is causing that. Oh, well, I remember that, it's this fear of being judged because so-and-so said this back to me back in 3rd grade. This teacher, made this comment. I mean, stuff like this comes up that people haven't thought about in 40 years when we tap. So it really is like,
and when they look at it, it sounds silly even when they say it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I can't believe I'm carrying this.
Yes,
right.
Yeah. And those things are usually really easy to clear, It's like, oh, well, okay, when we're done with whatever we're working on right now, we're going to go back to this little snippet, this little movie that, about this thing that happened, and we'll clear that. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've been carrying that around. That's why I always am so glad that my kids have tapping with me now, because if you had tapping when you were a kid, you wouldn't have this pile of, all this baggage that just compiles itself over the years that you have to actually peel away all of these layers. Like I was saying, like you're going back and back and back. When you're a little kid, hey, I had this thing happen at school today. So-and-so said this mean thing to me. Okay, let's tap it out right now. Then you don't have to carry that shit with you for decades,
It's funny. You said like in the beginning, you're like, I wish there was something like I had found something that was like a trauma that, and you finally figured out it was chickenpox. I'm like,
well, it is trauma. It is trauma. It's just not this like, war story.
Yeah. It wasn't anything horrific like I thought it would be.
Right.
It's so funny, Liz, you said that and I got off the Zoom or the recording with you and or maybe it was before that because he's in England. So early in the morning, right before I got on the call with you, I guess it was.
Yeah.
I was on a hypnotist's podcast.
Oh, okay.
And it's so interesting to me that, yes, this is a different modality, but in a very similar way, those things that you said, these little traumas that come up that like we might be carrying come up for him all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, and in hypnotism, it's, he's expecting oh my God, I was, held down and forcibly beat, and it's like, no, one time my mom said this thing. It's not even like
I know it's not even anything
as an
like
adult. You're like, what? Why would I get upset about that?
I know.
I was being a jackass. What does that have to do with anything?
But these things that we hold on to, they're, just these little tiny things are things that can really keep you stuck for decades, and it's like life changing to just remove some of those and watch what happens. Watch how how much better you can manifest something, how much healthier you feel, how much more energy you have, how less if you have pain, how much less pain you're in physically. So
yeah, I mean, I wish that I could find even the fact that my mom yelled at me on a Tuesday in 1987. Like, I wish I could find that, because I've done past life therapy. I've done future self therapy. I've done hypnosis. I've done, you name it. And some of it's in pursuit of this little passion that Tom and I share for this show. But some of it's just because I feel like I'm a little crazy, and I just like to peel that back a little bit. But so far, man, nothing's come up, and I almost feel like shortchanged.
Like why?
Fuck, there's got to be something. Yeah, there's got to be something.
You know what?
I'm sure.
You know what? Be glad that there's nothing, and feel and tap about that. I'm glad that there's nothing. Because
I've run 26 marathons and 7 Ironman, and everyone I tell that story to is like, "What are you running from?" And I was like, and they mean it.
Didn't somebody else tell you that your big thing is fear?
Yeah, right, And I said, I'm not running from anything. They're like, "Oh, buddy, you are." People run a marathon in a lifetime.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. Do you feel like you're running from
that's
something?
the problem, right? I don't really feel like that, but every time I I hear people like you tell these stories. I've heard this story 1,000 times, and I get so jealous, because I'm like, fuck, I wish I could just.
No, you don't want any of this.
Unearth this one thing.
No, don't. There isn't anything then. Be confident that it would have come up by now with all of this work. I really feel that for you. Be confident that it didn't, that you don't have any of that, because these people that I see, I look at my life, which I thought I had this traumatic life because my parents got divorced. I had this hair pulling. It was, people were teasing me. It was awful. But I thought, God, I had this horrible upbringing. You should hear some of the shit that I mean, it's like mind blowing. I'm sick for these people. It's horrific stuff.
And you're like, wow, I'm not. Yeah, I'm
thank
nothing.
God I only had these little things. I mean, so be glad that you didn't have that, and feel good that, hey, I've done all this work. If it was meant to come up, it'll come up. It would have come up by now. I feel like,
Yeah, so. No, I sort of half kid about that, but I really was hoping one day that I was like, all right, I'm going to go into the first hypnotist thing. I'm like, I'm going to go in there.
All horrible shit happened.
Yeah,
to me.
I was like, you
almost feel like, that's the reason. You're looking for the excuse.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right.
That's why I'm fucked up. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like a Seinfeld or something, like where Jerry gets violated at the dentist's office when he's under the gas. So something like that.
Totally. Well, I joked going into my past life therapy one. I said, listen, man, I'm cool unless I find out I was Genghis Khan in a previous life. Then I'm going to have a fucking major problem.
I don't know. Maybe there's something wrong with me. I'm like, that's kind of baller. That sounds pretty cool. You ran something
dude.
Like
what they say, like 20% of Asia has Genghis Khan DNA.
He had like 700 kids or something.
It's like it's ridiculous. So I was like, well, if I was Genghis Khan, at least I was getting laid a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I always wondered about that. We got to find a past life regression specialist.
Oh, I know.
I got some questions.
I've got some questions. Yeah.
I know some people.
Future self is fun one too.
I know some people that do that. So
let us know if you know anybody in that space, man.
Totally.
Oh my good
I totally
Lord.
do.
Yeah.
So
the future self was fun too, because you're like, get to sort of write your own future, which I think is super interesting, because when you look at it, I mean, and more importantly, and I guess this is sort of like why we do the show, but when you stitch all of these things together, like any one of these things is an interesting story. Tapping is an interesting story. Past life regression is an interesting story. But when you stitch it all together, and last night we had a awesome conversation with a cardiologist who takes like a sort of a holistic approach to sort of cardiac health. And when you stitch that all together, you're like, okay, so I was Genghis Khan in a previous life that influenced me in this way. I had, my mom yelled at me on a Sunday in 1987, and that influenced me in this life in a different way. I can see the future in myself, and I always have a very consistent image of what that looks like. I've done it with several therapists in different settings and different stages of my life, and that image has always been exactly the same. And that is informative. And then when I look at cardiac health, I say, okay, great. This is how I make sure I get to future self.
Yeah.
And tapping is, how do I make today self like actually manageable and not this frenetic mess of crazy? And so it only makes sense to me when you put it all together, right? When you go from soup to nuts and you say, you know what? Unfortunately, I can't just wake up every morning and just let fucking life happen. Like I could, but that's how I end up on Prozac and fucking Adderall and a bunch, you know, and Lipitor later on and Viagra after that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like that's how I end up on that. Like I those are people that just woke up and just let it ride. Like they took no autonomy over anything.
Right.
And so the unfortunate downside of that is it takes every fucking day. I gotta tap for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
Do exercise.
But there's always shit to work on.
There's always shit to work on.
There's never not life, you know?
Yeah, well, no,
always
absolutely. But like that's the biggest fallacy that we've been taught as a kid. And I think this is changing now. But like, and I told my kids this recently. I said, you guys have so much more information than we had when we were your age. Good or bad, right? Like it's neither, right? It's just an observation.
Yep.
We watch TV with our kids every night, and if something comes up, I don't even before I could even explain it to them, they already have a Wikipedia page up. They know
they're
it.
Already looking it up.
They're so fast.
They're already cross-referencing and making sure that what they're reading is true.
Yep.
And it's absolutely breathtaking. And like, if I had a percentage point, a single digit percentage point of that capacity when I was their age, who the fuck knows what would be different? Like, I mean, it's like, and so I'm hoping that maybe they get to our age and on their podcast or whatever the medium is when they're there, they're not having to talk about this shit because like they won't have the problem quite the same way we have.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, they definitely won't, you know, but like, I think that's, I think this is, you know, maybe we're in like a quest as Gen Xers not to become our parents.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you know, like is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like we don't look as old as they did when they were our age.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to be my parents. No, and that's
and I actually love my parents,
and I do too. But I don't. But that's the reason that I feel like I was meant to find tapping is to get over all that shit and you know come into my real person who I'm supposed to be, who I was meant to be when you know they were brought up in a different time. So they didn't know all the stuff that, you know, we know now. And I feel like being able to cut the ties to what they didn't have. And hey, I have all this stuff now and I'm allowed to use it and I'm going to use it to my benefit. And Matt, when you're talking about these experiences that, you know, past life, whatever, traumas, or you're looking for a trauma, whatever, there's also something called matrix re-imprinting. Have you guys heard of it?
No, but shit.
So
man,
it's
thank you for
it
burning
is
the rest of my day on a Google
search. You're gonna go down a rabbit hole real quick here. So it's also something that I'm interested in. At some point, I'm actually getting trained in hypnotherapy right now because I feel like the two EFT and hypno I can get to the bottom of people's trauma or whatever quicker with hypnotherapy in conjunction with EFT. So like maybe we do a hypnotherapy one session and then we do EFT the next session to like kind of flush out whatever came up in the hypno. So I'm doing that now, but at some point I'll do matrix. So matrix re-imprinting goes into that negative thing that happened, that trauma that happened. And you work with the practitioner to put a positive thing over top of what happened that was traumatic. So, okay, this someone said this horrible thing to you growing up and you were in second grade and it ruined you for the rest of, you never thought you were good enough since then. Okay. So we go back into that specific trauma and what did you need in that lifetime? Who did you need to be there? What did you want to be there? And we kind of like tap that into your subconscious. Okay. I needed a teacher to tell me that I did good. I needed my mom to come in and give me a hug. I needed this or that. So it puts something positive in place of that negative trauma that you had in life. So there's other ways to kind of escape or reprogram your future self to not have to live with those those horrible traumas.
Well, now, Tom, we need a Matrix reimprinter now.
Which I know a bunch of those too.
First of all, I looked them up.
To start.
I looked them up online, and like this might be the worst website I've ever seen in my entire life. But Matrix.
Well, Matt designs websites for a living.
Oh.
So
well, no, it's the
that's
website.
what I used to do.
Yeah, the website
my former
is.
life.
Oh, did you really?
My other I have a degree in a BFA in graphic design with a minor in computer graphics, and I did for 20 plus years. I was in marketing.
Oh,
I should have preloaded that to Matt.
Yeah, this is my 25th year.
Would have been a very different.
Yeah, I know. No, I was the art director. My last corporate job was art director at a private jet company, which was a really fun, really stressful job where I developed massive panic attacks. By the way, but
if you haven't had at least 100 panic attacks as a advertising professional, then you're not doing it right.
Yeah, but this I know. I swear it's the worst. Yeah. It's the worst business to be in. It's the worst profession to have if you have high anxiety already to start. So
if you just want high anxiety, it's a great place to foster that. Yeah, it's like
get anxious.
If you're looking to get anxious
directly to marketing.
Everything.
They'll be happy to hook you up.
Yeah, no, we've been working on this for decades. Yeah.
But no, I have the same eye as you then. So I'll go in and be like, oh my God, I can't even look at this website. It's shit. Like,
you know what? It's not that it's bad. It is also bad, but it is like it's not responsive. It looks like a 1995 webpage. And that's probably the
so they
last
haven't
time.
updated it since then.
Yeah, this is probably the last time they worked on this website.
Yeah.
But
well, I don't know what you're looking at, but
matrixreimprinting.com actually is about on the nose as it gets.
No, I would look up Craig. I know this sounds. You guys are gonna laugh your heads off if I say this. Craig Weiner and Alina Frank. Okay, they're married.
Okay, that's really
Weiner
funny.
Frank.
Yes. Craig Weiner and Alina Frank. They're out in Washington State. They are EFT master trainers, and they also do matrix reimprinting. They are like the highest and best. So I do know Craig and Alina, but I thought for sure you guys were going to go off on a tangent on those names.
Yeah, I'm looking them up. I've got them up in a tab. Yeah, after that. But we'll try very hard if we ever have them on the show to not mention the Weiner Frank. Yeah.
I think she probably didn't. She probably didn't change her last name to Weiner. I'm assuming. Like, why would you want that last name?
Yeah, I that's really funny. I'm now it's like the only thing I'll think about when I think about her. At least I won't forget her name.
Weiner and Frank. I know it's bad. But they're like the best to get trained through.
We'll have to talk to you offline about that. I'd love to talk to people like that because, like you said, I mean, I think I could talk to you all day on this. So, but the reality is we actually have to do some stuff today. That's
it's also been like this one's running real long for us, Liz.
Well, we usually don't go this long, but it's such an interesting topic. And I guess where I was going with this, and this is why we could talk forever, is that the last part of this conversation we start getting into matrix reimprinting and stuff, and even what you said about learning and hypnosis or whatever. That's kind of what I was going to with that whole stitch it together thing. It's like the more ingredients you could pull into your focus, the better the process probably ends up, right? Like, so it's if you do a little of column A, a little of column B, a little bit more efficient than just column A or just column B, right?
Yes.
That synergistic effect there.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where I get super fascinating. And then the nerd in me starts to come out and be like, all right, well, biomechanically or neurochemically, why is that? Because that there is a physical thing happening. And I always like to know that part because what else can do that same thing, right? Like we know tapping and we know hypnosis, but like if we found one of the things Tom and I were talking about this morning was getting Muse headbands and testing what happens to your brain chemistry when you're orgasming. And I'm like, all right, here's the thing.
My wife would kick me out of bed if I reach over.
Well, I said,
grab a headband and hang on 1 second.
Hold on a second. Yeah.
Hold on. Let me get the app open.
Well, would she wear one? I would wear one.
Let me get the app open, honey. Hold on. Not yet. Hold on. But so
I might be able to sell that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's the thing. Like, I'm curious, I think it's funny for our show in particular. It's very on brand for us to do that study, but also, like, if I know exactly what's happening in an orgasm neurochemically, like what happens, what else can I do to get that, to replicate that, that's not having sex. You can't have
I
sex.
can tell you. I already know.
Oh.
I seriously, it's the same thing that goes on in your brain when you pull your hair. You get that.
I'm sorry, I'm not pulling my hair. I'd definitely rather have sex.
Yeah, but there's a dopamine thing that goes on. There's an addictive. I mean, that's why so many people are addicted to. I mean, there could be an addiction there too.
Yeah.
But it's in a different way, but the pulling, but there's the neurotransmitters and everything that's going off in your brain when you're having an orgasm they're similar to when you pull your hair. And it's crazy.
That
but
is crazy.
It's true.
And I'd much rather have sex.
Oh yeah, a million times
I'm
over.
just stuck back at this joke in my head about that's the wrong kind of experimentation in bed.
Yeah.
That's not what I meant.
That's not exactly what I meant.
That's not exactly what I meant.
Yeah.
You know, you got a chemistry kit out. And
Tom's like,
that's not doing anything.
Yeah.
Put this on.
Tom's like, it's going to be hard to find participants. I'm like, what? No, it's not.
No.
Well, you know, like then we got to like qualify. Was this alone? Was this with another person?
Oh, right. You have to just give a sheet. This is how you have to use it.
Like
here's
anonymously,
the stipulations. Yeah, it has to be
How
with
many
another
men
person.
are going to be like, honey, I have to. I'm in this study. I'm
in the study.
We're going to have to go for like 4 times this week, honey. Like, what? Are you crazy?
That is why people should date nerds.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, this is it.
I'm in.
All right, Liz. Hey, listen, awesome coming by. How do we find you? Where do we send people?
Yes. So definitely, I would love to hear from you. You can schedule a free discovery call on my website, tapintohealth.net. You can find me on Instagram, tapintohealth_EFT, or you can listen to me on my podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts at Tap Into Health.
Awesome. And
yeah.
People you have on that show, is it people that are sort of synergistic from a clinician standpoint, or are they like people suffering from something that you walk through, like, or a little bit of both?
So anything that has to do with energy medicine, a lot of it is tapping, how to tap through specific things. My last episode this past Monday was using EFT to navigate divorce, the grief over divorce. But then, Tom and I talked about the similarities and differences between acupuncture and tapping. So stuff like that.
So like a mixed bag. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I love it.
Any of that. If you're interested, I'm there every week, Mondays.
That's very cool. Yeah. It's funny you say on Mondays. I'm like, Tom, maybe one day we actually have to put a schedule together. Tom and I just sort of release like a bunch at a time.
We just drop everything.
We're just like, all right, here's like 5 more.
Yeah, but you're guys, you guys are just, no one cares. It's just, I think people.
Exactly.
That's what I keep saying.
Yeah.
No one
you hit the nail on the head.
No one gives a shit to just put it out there. People, no, they don't care. No, for some reason, I feel obligated to have a schedule, but I'd like to not. But I don't know.
That's not surprising, Liz. You listed like 37 disorders that you
I know.
work
for. Type A personality.
You needing a schedule feels very on brand.
It's bad. It's real bad. My husband's like, I had no idea. I wouldn't have married you if I knew you had all these things, all this shit wrong with you.
You should have came with a disclaimer.
Nice.
I know. It's like I apologized in advance, but he didn't know me well enough after.
I feel like the longer you're with somebody, though, you also let more out.
Yeah, that's true. You're more comfortable with them.
Right, there's another layer of trauma I got to deal with here.
Hey, honey, here's another 15-syllable disorder that I've.
I know. The other day,
yeah.
just casually, we're doing the dishes together, and I said, "So, like, when can we get divorced again? Like, how long do we have to wait? Until the kids are married? Until the kids are married? Until like when?" He said, like when they're in college, we can get divorced." I mean, now we just joke about it because it's like, oh my God, he can't wait to get away from me.
We're in it till at least then. So.
I know.
I joke with my wife that like, oh, you found another disorder on TikTok, huh? Somebody else said something, and
no, my husband just said to me yesterday, "Are you a hypochondriac?" And I said, "No, I'm going through perimenopause. I'm not a hypochondriac."
That's a true thing. And my wife was sending me TikTok videos of like doctors, and I'm like, no, I didn't say you were nuts.
My husband thinks I'm nuts, and he said,
I very clearly did not say those words.
I never would say those words to your her face.
No, but I said to him, picture that. He said, I don't understand what perimenopause is even. And I said, just picture if your balls shriveled up and fell off of your body. That's basically what's happening
That's what's
to me,
happening,
you know?
yeah.
I think my life would become infinitely simpler.
Yeah. Hey, can I elect to do that? I mean, that sounds...
They've never done anything good for me.
Yeah. They usually only get me into trouble, so this actually might work out. Yeah. No, perimenopause. We actually, I've been looking for a good perimenopause person to talk about, because I think aside from Tom and I's,
well, we got Lynn coming on in like a few weeks. Right. And she's just a endocrine genius.
Oh, that's great.
And like, I love the topic, not because I'm going through it, but like Tom and I's age very similar to yours, it seems, and our wives are all, and friends, and it's not just our wives, it's everyone we know. Yeah. Kind of embarking on this journey sort of at the same time. And it's something that people don't really talk about a lot. It's gotten more airplay lately because of TikTok, I assume. But like, it's just one of those things that we just don't really know. I mean, who in the 80s even said the word perimenopause?
I mean, they didn't. Huberman just had a podcast, had Dr. Mary Claire Haver on just this week, and I can't listen to his shit. It's like 4 hours long. Yeah, I mean, I love him and I love her, but like, I don't have 4 hours, like not even in the car. So
that's why Rogan had to go for me. I love that show, but it was like, oh my God, it's exhausting. It's I don't have like so long to sit here and listen to it. So
but no, it's a thing. Like, I can't wait to go to baseball tonight, my son's baseball game this evening, because all the moms and we talk about perimenopause the entire time.
Of course, yeah. While you're tapping. So this sucks, huh? Yeah, okay.
Podcasts, and we tap and we talk about perimenopause, and we compare drugs and everything else. But it's like a thing, and you need, it's, women have to advocate for themselves when it comes to this. And I've learned, I hope my sister will take, some of this information that I've gathered over the past year and a half with her when this happens to her, because it's you have to navigate through it. It's a big deal.
Sure. Yeah, I know, for sure.
Yeah. And it's definitely has been swept under the rug since the 80s, and it's about time. So I'm glad you guys are having
since the beginning of time. The 80s is just kind of when it kind of
In the 80s, we realized that we were hiding a bunch of shit. We should probably either hide it better or start talking about it.
I think the push was to hide it better.
Hide it better. So. And then just don't talk about it. Then there's gynecologists that, no, we don't do that. No. Oh, you sweat to death every night? That's great. That just means you're healthy. No, I mean,
that means it's working.
The number one drug for a lot of issues before we started to get more savvy was Wellbutrin. It was like, you gotta be, you're crazy. Let's just give you this and calm you the fuck down.
You don't want to smoke anymore? Wellbutrin. You don't want to, Wellbutrin for everything.
Yeah. Made popular by the Wellbutrin hot sales lady who's coming by selling Wellbutrin in all the doctors' offices.
To the male gynecologist.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Here's your pediatrician. What is going on here?
Your kid seems a little off.
What happened?
All right, Liz, your homework. You got to give us a bunch of cool people to talk to, because I've got like 8 tabs open now. I'm like,
okay, I'll get you. The Matrix people. I already forgot, but we will.
Past life people.
Past life Matrix.
I'll hook you up.
Bring it on.
Yep, definitely. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
This was so much fun. Thank you.
Hang out afterwards, Liz. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I'll send
guys.
you an email with all that info. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Be subversive, irreverent.
Health is wealth, but you knew that.
Everybody knows that.
But so is following us on social media at Irreverent Health. And check out our website for more exclusive content at irreverenthealth.com.
Oh, I like this.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Irreverent Health.